Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we've got a very special guest. His name is Ron Souers, and he's an ADHD advocate, a podcast host, and an author dedicated to empowering adults with ADHD to embrace their differences and unlock their true potential. And I like to keep intros short and let the conversation have plenty of time to talk. So, Ron, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here with us. And, you know, it's funny, when I was a kid, I was known to be, they called me hyperactive, but I'm a lot older than you. And the truth is, I probably had what they call ADHD now. I think everybody's got a little ADHD these days. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that actually means? But most importantly, why don't you tell us how did you come here? How did you come to this space? And tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Joe, for the space and it's a privilege and an honor. Honestly, how I came to find out with ADHD wasn't like, it was a lot like probably most other people's stories, and just I didn't know. Um, I would say like it started because I was about to lose my job. And like I couldn't slow down. I couldn't stop. Like, I didn't feel the need that I needed that, but I had people in my life, like a lot of people were saying, man, you need to slow down. And I just didn't think that they knew what they were talking about. Um, so like anything in my life, or, most people, in order to want to change, the pain's got to be great enough. And
Right.
for me, that losing my job was so scary. Because I was like, I'm an addict as well. So I was in a program during that time. So I had people around me, um, that understood how I was, and like understood like the impact of like losing my job. So there was a lot of, good, loving fear involved in that. So what that ended up prompting me to do was go to my my primary care doctor, and saying, "Hey, look, I can't slow down. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I don't know what to do. Um, what do you suggest?" And she kind of really didn't drew a blank, and I was like, maybe I have ADHD, and she kind of didn't look too convinced. But she still gave me a list of like psychologists and therapists to like run down, which was, not the easiest thing to do, because I don't even know which one I need. First
Right,
off,
right. How old are you at this point
I'm 44.
today? But I mean, this at when you're going through
Oh,
this.
when it was like 2, 3 years ago,
Oh,
two and
okay.
a
So
half.
this is pretty recently.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right.
So yeah, like I went through that list, and I was able to find the therapist that I actually still talk to today. And like one of the first things that he said to me that really stood out was like, this can actually be used, turned into a strength, like
Yeah.
if you do the work. And I was like, I don't know. Like I was just so elated at that time that like I knew what it was, that there was help, and I thought, hey, look, if I just do what he says, it's gonna be cured. I'm gonna be
Right.
fixed.
Somebody knows
And
about this. It's not just like this mutant alien virus that nobody knows what to do with.
yeah, I'm not all alone, and other people have gotten better with it. So, I'm just gonna trust this guy, and do what he says, and just see, at least try what he says, and try to implement that in my life. And one of the biggest things that made an impact was like he said, to drive to work like you're taking the long way. So I literally went and took the long way to work. So I went extra early, and It was like a bit of meditation, and that definitely helped, but it was like a mountain, to like an impossible mountain that I didn't think, there was a lot of pitfalls where I just didn't think that I could slow down, and you know, but I had good people in my life that were helping me along that journey.
So, was this something that you've dealt with all your life, or did you notice that it became more pronounced as you got older?
I mean, it like, yeah, looking back, yeah, I definitely remember. I remember this one time that I was like, I love to go fast in cars that didn't really go fast, but I was like, man, I'm a speed racer. And I remember this one time in particular where I was like going to like my best friend's house, and like there was like this thin gap, and my sister was in the car beside me, and I was just like flooring it and going, I'm going on the side of the road to get
Oh,
past that, and
wow.
she was so scared. And I was like, man, I don't know why you're scared. Cause like I got this, but like looking back, like that could have been, you
Right.
know, that could have
Half a
ended up,
second wrong and boom, it's all over. Yeah.
yeah. So like I lived most of my life like that, like, thinking that that was normal, thinking that's what I needed to do.
Okay. And when you're going through school, I mean, let's go back into high school or college or just your school age. Did you find that you had struggles? Like for me, I never went to college, or at least no more than a couple semesters, but when I was in grade school and high school, I was always fidgeting and doing stupid crap because I couldn't keep my mind on the subject matter unless it was really interesting. And if it was, I'd lock
Yeah.
in and I couldn't let it go and I'd be obsessed with it. But I was always the one moving around doing stupid crap and getting, put off to the corner because I was disrupting everybody.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely had times like that. Like for me, art was something that always was something that drew me to it. I ended up, winning a couple of awards for my art in art
Okay.
class, and um but like everything else, it just like I think I was interested in science a little bit,
Uh-huh.
but it really depended on the teacher.
Right.
And I really just coasted through, high school and got, I remember, hiding out in the bathroom, between classes and just, because like I just felt so different. I didn't really think that I could make friends. And like, I didn't find out till recently, like, that was actually a deeper trauma when I was in like second grade,
Oh,
that I had actually stood up in the class on a desk and thought like, to try to get friends, to try to be funny. And my teacher did not like that, and she ended up putting me in the front of the class, and I think I got made fun of.
uh-huh.
So it was like I just felt, like my mom told me that, I told her like I just didn't feel like I would rather disappear than
Oh,
go
wow.
back to school. So I remember seeing a lot of therapists growing up, but
Okay.
none of them were able to really connect the dots. That it was just like anxiety, and I didn't really like listening to them. I was just going to, appease
Doing
my
what you had to
parents.
do. Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So now you got this therapist that you think has got the answers. How tell us a little bit about how that went.
Yeah, it was a process in a, and like in the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna do whatever he says, and we're gonna get past this. And like I don't have to see therapy, like it was just another um box to check off, so there, and I had success in there, and I definitely learned to slow down, learn the value of like analyzing my thoughts and like really questioning, one question that I still ask myself is like, what is the rush? Like
Right,
I've
right. It's the hurry.
left, yeah, I've left early enough,
Right.
Like, but I'm speeding down the road. Like, I'm gonna get there on time. Like,
Hurry up so you can sit there and wait.
yeah. So, that question definitely helps to like, okay, bring me back in the moment and like really, analyze what I'm doing. But it's like, so I ended up leaving, and saying like, hey, I think this has run its course. I can apply what you've taught me in my life. So what ended up happening was like I got a different position in my job that required me to operate a forklift around dangerous chemicals, raw chemicals, and putting in it was like a mixing role.
Hmm.
And I was it
You had
was
to
a
pay attention.
yeah, I was like, and that same need to like go fast took over again because I'm
Oh
learning a
no.
new position. I want to make sure that they are right. They made the right decision. I want to show them, but like I ended up running into like a reinforcement pole, almost
Oh
taking that
no.
out, and
Mhm.
like punch flipping drums and like you name it, like crushing pallets.
Oh,
Like it was crazy, and like the final thing that really, you know, uh, broke the camel's back, if you will, was like I was pulling down, I was lowering the forks and it hit this little beam that was like right next to these chemical lines. So if it
oh,
it went over a little bit more, but in my mind, I'm like, it's just a beam that like it shouldn't even be there because it's not even on the other side. But honestly, like, now that I'm looking back, it's like I'm glad that happened
yeah.
but in that moment, I was so scared. Like I was so full of stress and fear, like I was going to lose my job and like after evaluating that with my sponsor and like fortunately I had time. Like you have this health and safe time, so I took the rest of the day off because
Mhm.
they immediately were like, you need to get recertified on and there was no one there to do that. So
Oh
like
wow.
I had to have somebody else operate the fork truck for me until I left. And I was just like, I needed to step off that situation and
Right.
evaluating it. I was like, you know what? I need to go back to my previous position because like me and heavy machinery do not mix
Not a
because like
good
I
match.
was literally going back. That's when I went back to my therapist and was like, we came up with a game plan for slowing down and I was doing good and then that happened. So it was so frustrating because it looked like to everyone else like I just didn't care and I was just but I got distracted in that moment. So I
Right.
understood like anything, it doesn't matter how hard I work or how much training I get, like it could just be any little distraction. And I could end up it could be worse than that. So, during that process, like I wanted to look for, a different job, like because I was like, I'm working around dangerous chemicals, period. So
Right.
like that, that's not good with
Yeah.
distraction.
Better
So
choices to make when you can't keep your mind on the subject there.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So like I started looking into like ways to make like side hustles and
Okay.
one of them was like the podcast.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I was like really I really found that I had a passion
Hmm.
for talking about mental health. And then I wanted to kind of niche it down to be like ADHD in the workplace. Because it was like you don't get a lot of that, talked about, like what tools you can use, how that shows up and how you can talk about it, how you can advocate for it. So I really started to build that and started doing a lot of research. And, I found that it was like pretty difficult to find the information. You really had to do some digging. Like now it's still, but I feel like it's all out there. It's just so scattered and
Right.
so
Plus,
like, it's not like synthesized.
there's
So
so
that was
much information in
yeah,
in so many places that separating good information from bad information, or like you said, connecting relevant information together. Like a lot of times people
yeah,
will, you know, collect a dozen different terms for a dozen different conditions and throw them all into the same batch as though they all belong together. And,
Yeah.
somebody's got to figure out what goes where. So I hear the term ADHD a lot, and frankly, I don't even know exactly what that means. Why don't you share with us really what is ADHD?
Yeah, ADHD is, basically the term means attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So that name is totally confusing on its own because like I don't lack attention. I don't have a deficit in attention. I have an abundance in attention. I just don't know how to focus it.
Okay.
And like hyperactivity was kind of thrown in there because, that fidgeting, that not being able to sit still, racing thoughts, and like you can tell, like I have that hyperactivity, but a
Sure.
lot of it is combined because there's the inattentive side, where people are just, they seem like they're lazy or they seem like they're slow or they seem like they don't care. It's really their brain is it's so hard for them to like put things together that it's like they're just doing literally the best that they can. So when you have like a combination of those two, because like when it comes to like complex information, like
Mhm.
it takes me a long time to really absorb it, but when I do, it's like set in there, and then I can see it in a different way. I
Got it.
compare like the ADHD brain to a high definition printer
Uh,
because it's going to take longer to process that information, but the picture is going to have so much more quality, so much more detail, and like that's where. And another aspect of it is that emotional dysregulation. So it's like you could be feeling great 1 minute and then, something happens and then you're down in the dumps or you're completely angry. Like your emotions are so like all over the place,
right.
and a lot of times you don't know how to express that and that comes out as anger or frustration, and that's one of the things that like why I started like wanting to coach that because I became like a human guinea pig of like, okay, what does this work? What does this do? And, like seeing what has the best benefit in the most like simple way to do that because it's like there's all these great things out there that, kind of touch on the surface level of it, but they don't
Right.
go really to the deeper core issue of ADHD.
So the last word of that acronym is disorder. And so I look at that as, kind of like it's not a disease necessarily, but a situation where your brain isn't working the way a quote normal brain would work. And
Yeah.
there's all these reasons for these things to happen. And it could be genetic, it could be environmental, it could be trauma induced. So what is the genesis of this particular type of a syndrome, or is there just one, or is it combinations of things for different people?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no real normal brain. Like there's
Right.
everyone has like something everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses,
Sure.
basically. I think that disorder just gives it such a negative connotation. It really
Right.
just is a difference. Like it's just your brain developed differently, and it is trauma induced.
Okay.
A lot of it, from my understanding, is like when you're born, before you were even born, when you're being created, like the trauma that the mother is going through, like
Mhm.
has a direct impact on the way that your brain develops, and like parts of your brain get overdeveloped and
Okay.
parts of your brain get underdeveloped. It
Yep.
develops with the same energy, but like different parts. So even that process, and this is something that I've learned from Dr. Gabor Mate, and like he's an incredible source of like information. And he really like the difference between him and most people that study it in science is he adds that spirituality and emotional element to it because you can't really figure out what the problem is without looking at those details as well.
Got
So
it.
it's like and even the trauma can happen early in childhood from like neglect, because a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't for a long time that neglect can actually be a very powerful
Oh,
traumatic event.
100%. We've had a number of guests talk about a number of ways that can play out from,
Yeah.
different types of syndromes to, I mean, it's wild how a neglected child can manifest that trauma in so many different ways, and
Hmm.
I keep seeing it happen over and again. So you've gone through a number of different solutions. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of these solutions and the ones that have worked best for you?
Yeah, I would say like um just being like vulnerable about it,
Hmm.
and acceptance, like a deep level of acceptance of like, hey, I have ADHD. That's not going to change. Let's see how I can move forward. It's not a problem. It's not something that's, like makes me less than or better than anybody else. It's just the way I am. Just like I need glasses.
Right.
Like I don't just say, well, I need to fix my eyes or like do something crazy. I mean, there's obviously laser surgery, but like, honestly, it's like one of the biggest tools that I found beyond that is
Hmm.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
and mindfulness is so powerful because like, with especially with racing thoughts and being able to control that. It's like exercising your brain.
Right.
It's like literally like being able
That's
to
exactly
create
what it
that
is, really.
space.
Yeah. It's like mental calisthenics. You get in there and you got to go down all the way and come up all the way, and when you do
Yeah.
that, you got a little something from it.
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber only episodes that we offer to the supporters. And for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I really explored that to a deeper level, and I found this thing called MBSP, which is
Mhm.
mindfulness based strengths practice, and it combines character strengths with mindfulness to
Nice.
create like this next level of like understanding of like, so we all have different character strengths and they all show up in different ways. And like for me, one of them's, one of the top ones is creativity and love of learning. So when those two like really like come together, when I'm loving learn and then create, like my brain lights up, so like it's being mindful of those things. Am I using too much creativity, or am I and coming up with too many ideas, and like maybe I need to add some prudence in there and be like, look, I can only focus really well on one thing, even though I think I can multitask, but in my
The old
experience.
multitasking conundrum, right? Everybody thinks I am multitasking, I'm better. Worst thing you can do.
Yeah, it actually doesn't exist. It
Right.
doesn't work, because like it's that trend. It actually slows you down, slows
Right.
down your progress. It's like when and you look at focus and like understanding focus, like what your mind focuses on
Mhm.
is like what you're going to produce in your life. So
100%.
you look at light and like light, if you put it under a magnifying glass, it's well, you just look at light and it's harmless. It lights up the room. But if
Right.
you put it under a magnifying glass, you can burn stuff.
You
If
bet.
you even focus it even stronger, you can cut through steel like
Oh
a
yeah.
laser.
The laser beam. Yeah.
So that's the same way your mind works. If
Right.
you are completely focused on one thing and nonstop and without any distractions, which is difficult for somebody with ADHD, but
Sure.
like that's what I
Good
do.
practice.
Like I coach them. Like for me, every person with ADHD is like somebody, a man with ADHD is buried treasure.
Right. Right. Well, I can say definitely this conversation, I wouldn't suspect that you dealt with ADHD. So you've definitely, you have a focus through the conversation. Your tempo has been laid back, paced, and everything about it. Like I've had guests that are pretty manic, and I get excited. I get manic sometimes and just like speed up and just get into it, But you really had a good level demeanor through this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast and how the people that you're helping and how that's all working?
Yeah, I appreciate that and that observation and that means a lot.
Yeah.
Um so with my podcast, it's called Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD. I have, single episodes where I talk about certain topics that are particularly interested in me and that have had an impact and I believe will help other people. Like I did this ADHD and trauma series, so it was like this whole arc of how it happens when you're born, like what happened, like growing up as a child, what how your parents are involved, how the environment is involved, how that can lead to addiction. Like it really goes deep into, like exploring like all these things contributed to who you are today. It wasn't just one thing. So we can't just address those one thing and coming up with solutions in
Nice.
those things and not in a way that's like, oh, these are all bad and like this is the problem. No, it's like there's good things in them, but
Yeah.
understanding them helps you to make an educated decision moving
100%.
forward.
Everything cuts both ways. People don't realize that there is no good or bad. I mean there is good
Yeah.
and bad, but most everything has a little bit of both in it. And it depends
Yeah.
on what you're doing with it and what you're putting it with and there's so many variables. I think that's good. The solutions in health are generally unique to each individual and the complex set of circumstances that are involved.
Yeah, definitely. And mental health is so important to the whole dynamic of it. Like understanding how your brain works
Right.
and like what's a good amount of sleep, what I need to do to be able to focus, like the proper amount of water. Like that's so important
Sure.
to, and if your mental health's not good, you're not going to care about exercise and you're not going to care about the rest of the paradigm,
Right.
so like and I believe that like in my life like when you're more God centered and you
Mhm.
put God in first in your life, like everything else falls into place because you understand why you're here. You understand God doesn't make mistakes, and if
Right.
he made you out of love.
You bet. 100%. That's a wise observation. Listen, Ron, this happens to me almost every time. We run out of time before we run out of conversation. I want to invite you to wrap your thought up into a central point to bring to the listeners. But I also want to invite you to come back to continue this discussion at a future time because I feel like we really just scratched the surface of this. And I have
Yeah,
a number of guests that come back over and again and get deeper into conversation. And I definitely want to extend that offer to you as well. But for our
yeah.
listeners, is there a central thought that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's just you're worth it. Like you're worth like I said, God created you, you have a gift, and it's you alone. You're one of a kind. and you're worth getting to know better.
100%. That's a powerful and beautiful thought, and it's important. I think if each of us were to take that alone and really spend time with it and realize it, and then you start forgiving yourself for the stupid things that you beat yourself up for, and you start opening up doors instead of shutting them, and creating
Yeah.
opportunity instead of walking away from things. So definitely, I would encourage everybody to take that one and spend some time with it. It's definitely important.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how to find your podcast and how to get a hold of you if somebody's dealing with ADHD themselves and they want to maybe find some answers.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to like step into my world, definitely. Um, don't mind me. I just have ADHD is my podcast. There, it's on Apple, Spotify, your favorite platform to listen on. I'm also offering your guest a video that I just made, and
Oh,
that's like free training. It's called Mastering the Moment.
sweet.
And literally it talks about like, how to make eye contact, how to do the different things to really show up and like make a powerful first impression. You can find that at youradhdguy.com. And there's several other great resources there, including, ways to get in contact with me and like potentially work with me.
Fantastic. Well, Ron, this has been a great conversation. Apparently, you and I have a lot in common. And it's funny. I never considered my what they called back in the 70s hyperactivity um, a deficit. I was like, well, I don't know. You give me something I'm interested in, and I'll lock in. Other
Yeah.
than that, you're not that interesting. And I don't think
Yeah,
I ever
that's
let it
powerful.
get to me because I kept going. I always found a way to find something else. Although, I'm sure I complicated a lot of other people's lives along the way. But I
Yeah.
I absolutely want to extend that invitation to you. I'd love to have you come back, and there's just so much more to talk about. But I want to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm humbled and honored that you'd have me back, and I'd love to.
Wonderful. Well, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I'd like to thank all of our listeners that make this show possible. And we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.